boy.
Medal of the day.
Happy Saturday. Thanks for
Yeah.
being here. To anyone out there listening, thank you so much for joining. My name is Claire Martin, and I'm the Assistant Artistic Director of Sweet Tea Shakespeare. And I'm thrilled and honored to be joined today by two of my dear friends and colleagues. This is Ben Apple and Siena Brown.
Hi.
Both of these wonderful humans are a part of the Beaux Stratagem, which is an audio drama that we are just about to start recording, and we are going to be performing on Zoom a week from today on February 6th. And today we're going to be talking about this wonderful wonky show, and we're going to give these two awesome actors the chance to chat about their characters and about the sort of bigger stratagem project, which is what the Beaux Stratagem is a part of. So Ben and Siena are digital restoration series rock stars. They've been with me literally from the very beginning. Both of them played characters in our Way of the World radio play, which we rehearsed and recorded all the way back in July of 2020, before we knew anything that was to come. Ben played Mirabelle and Siena played Foible. And since then, they have done so many titles with me. Ben played Belleville in The Rover, which was another radio play that we did and performed back in November. Siena has been playing sort of like romping teenagers for me in all of our table reads. She played Lucinda in The Beau Defeated and Miss Prue in Love for Love. Ben has also done table reads. And right now they are in the 10-week stratagem project, of which Beaux Stratagem is part 1. So I'm really, really like so thrilled that they're here today. And I'm excited to hear them talk about their characters and this show, which is just a riot and a half. So let's just start with sort of like the basic plots of the Beaux Stratagem, what it is, and what it's about. So it is a late Restoration comedy, first published and performed in 1707 by the Irish playwright George Farquhar, who was a kind of brilliant satirist who kept company with the likes of Jonathan Swift and William Congreve. And the Beaux Stratagem is kind of his opus. It was the last play he wrote, and he passed away a few days after seeing it performed on stage. And it follows the antics of two young men from London, two young rakes named Amewell and Archer, who in the span of just a few years have like gambled, hoard, and drunk away all the money they ever owned, and find themselves completely out of cash and out of options. And being I don't even know if we can call them geniuses, being the desperate dorks they are, they decide to go into the English countryside and run a con, their stratagem, by which they are going to dress up as a rich lord and his valet, his servant, in the hopes of kind of seducing a young, impressionable, wealthy debutante into marriage so that they can have her money and return to London and continue their debaucherous life. Unfortunately, their plan, as you listen to it, has a lot of holes in it. And the thing that they really are not counting on is the women that they meet in the first town on their circuit, which is Lichfield. They arrive at an inn in the middle of the night, and almost immediately both dudes fall head over heels in love. One for a young woman named Dorinda Bountiful, who is exactly the kind of sort of beautiful young heiress that they are looking for. And the other is her sister-in-law, Mrs. Sullen, who unfortunately for Archer happens to be married. And her husband is the target of a heist. There are like pirate-esque highwaymen. There are Irish people pretending to be French people. There is a subplot with like a French count, and there is robbery and thievery, and I guess those are the same thing. And lots of ill-advised sword fights, and music and dance and song, and the whole play is just a rollicking romp. So that is kind of what the Beaux Stratagem is. It is a delightful play. Of all the Restoration comedies, it has a really big, buoyant spirit and a lot of heart. And it's kind of wholesome in a way that many restos are not. And so that's where we're beginning. And I'm going to have these two excellent people just go one at a time and chat about the characters that they're playing. And Ben, let's start with you. Who's your character?
Sure. So I am playing Aimwell of the famed Aimwell and Archer. He is one of the rakes, and he comes into this as the lord to Archer's servant. Um, and they both know they're coming into this looking for a wealthy woman, but I mean, I don't feel like it says it. Aimwell, I think, is a little more okay if things don't go exactly according to plan. When they're first getting into, okay, we're here. What are we going to do? Aimwell has his moments of, well, and if I happen to fall in love, that'd be great. And so I feel like the wholesomeness you're describing definitely comes out both in their friendship and in this kind of stupid stratagem that I don't know. They both have really big hearts, so they're coming into this with plans to con people and sort of get what they want. But I think at the end of the day, they don't have it in them to really screw other people over, or if they do, they don't have it in them to screw these particular people over. Like you said, they don't expect to find Dorinda for Aimwell and Mrs. Sullen for Archer. So things sort of go awry and we're forced to improvise. Yeah, so I guess if I had to pare it down to a few words, I'd say Aimwell is a wholesome doofus boy.
Fantastic. And like so many restoration doofuses, gets a woman just so many degrees out of his league. So let's pivot to Siena. Let's talk about your character.
Well, Dorinda Bountiful is just a super darling teenage girl who lives in the countryside with her mother, who is kind of a medicine woman, but not great at it, and as well as her brother and his wife, who is her best friend, Mrs. Sullen. And Dorinda kind of starts off the show as just this kind of reserved, sweet, just like young woman. She's very bookish and kind of has no experience of the world whatsoever. The only experience she has with love are the books she's read, and then this horrible example of a marriage, which I think might be definitely paraphrasing a line that she actually says in the show, between her brother and her dear friend, Mrs. Sullen. And so when she kind of walks into the church and sees Aimwell, who is so kind and seems so humble, she's just kind of like heart eyes immediately. But I think as it goes on, she, like you describe Aimwell, I think really justly, is just really big-hearted and sincere. And I think Dorinda too is just, if I was to describe her in one word or maybe two, it would just be so sincere and so earnest. And I think that's what draws her to Aimwell immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think they both share that in common, and it's sort of an instant attraction, and that's exactly what Aimwell wanted going into this. He was like, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be great. I'm going to be so suave and awesome, but that's not Aimwell. He maybe thinks it is, but then it's like, oh my God, she's so earnest and wonderful, and I actually love her. Like, I feel like I think I see myself as a lot cooler than I am.
Totally.
And sees Aimwell as super cool, so it works out.
Right. But yeah, it's definitely the earnestness that I think they see in each other. And, as it so happens, it also, meets the requirements of this stratagem.
Right. But that's just dumb luck. That's literally
right,
dumb
exactly.
luck.
There's a lot of coincidence and dumb luck in this show.
Seriously, I feel like sometimes things, I mean, not sometimes, all the time, these men get things that they absolutely don't deserve. Like coming into this planning on stealing a rich heiress's money, like I don't deserve for this to happen, but I'm glad it does. And like you said, there's a wholesomeness to this play that is kind of refreshing because there's a lot of cynicism in Restoration plays and theater in general a lot of the time. And I mean, I think there's some that you could find in this, sure, if you dug for it. But I think that the heart is sort of front and center, which I like.
Absolutely. I was just talking with Ron yesterday and Claire Whitman about how the Beaux Stratagem stacks up to the Bell Stratagem in terms of the stratagem alone, right? If we're just looking at like the plot that is driving the boy's actions in Beaux and the plot that the young woman is laying in Bell's stratagem, like how do these two schemes stack up to each other, right? And they're both arguably convoluted to the point of like, you know, they're just like idiocy. But with the Beaux stratagem, like it's already kind of a insanely stupid plan. But also the two guys who are doing it are a little bit too open-hearted and a little bit too gullible and I would say kind of privileged and sheltered to really pull it off. They don't have the kind of savvy or street smarts that the actual highwaymen do, who inevitably come in the play to do like a robbery. And Claire Whitman plays a country woman in Beaux, but she plays Lady Frances in Bells. And she had said that in Farquhar's play, the Beaux succeed in spite of themselves. Like they succeed in spite of their best efforts. And I was like, that is completely true. Like they are the obstacle in their own way.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it's the robbery that, I mean, nothing that happened. Like their plan, they succeed because their plan doesn't go as planned.
Right.
Like, I think had the robbers not come in and all of that, like everything that they did not anticipate is what sort of drives their plan home in some ways.
Yeah, I mean,
which is great.
Dorinda agrees to marry Aimwell the night of the robbery because he comes to save her. Because she's so kind of bowled over by his like act of heroism, which I'm putting in quotations because I don't know if we can really call it that. But
yeah, just dumb luck again.
It's definitely a very interesting act of heroism.
Yeah, definitely dumb luck there.
Something you've both touched on that I want to talk about a little bit more is the theme of friendship in the Beaux Stratagem, because one of the things we have talked about and discovered in working on this play over the past month has been that Aimwell and Archer are two beaux running their con, and Dorinda and Mrs. Sullen, the two women they pursue, have much more scene time together in friend pairs than they do in romantic pairings. Even Archer and Mrs. Sullen, who are sort of inarguably the main romantic couple that we're following, they have only 30% of the stage time that Aimwell and Archer share in the play, and Dorinda and Aimwell probably have 10% of the stage time he has with Archer. This play, in many ways, the way I described it to the cast is I see it as a play about 4 love stories. There are 2 romantic love stories between Aimwell and Dorinda, your characters, and between Archer and Mrs. Sullen. And then there are these 2 platonic love stories between Dorinda and her sister-in-law / best friend, but really sister, Mrs. Sullen, and Aimwell and Archer are 2 beaux who have been best friends for years. And we are tracking all 4 arcs as love stories. And how has it been for the 2 of you? Like, what can you tell us about the friendships that your characters are a part of? And what has it been like working with your scene partners on those particular stories?
I'll start off. First of all, it's been such a pleasure working with Sarah. She's just such a clever actress or actor. I don't know. She's just the best. So it's really lovely to work with her because she always brings a lot of herself and her own like joy and spirit to the role. So it's really easy to act with her. I think the relationship between Mrs. Sullen and Dorinda is super interesting. It's such a strange dynamic because Dorinda does have this loyalty she's supposed to have with her brother, even though she does have this really true sisterhood with Mrs. Sullen. And I think it's a really interesting journey to see their relationship become more like less big sister, little sister, and more like equals by the end of the play, which is something you never like expect, or even it's something that you want, but you don't know you want until it happens. And you're like, oh, this is the way their relationship was always supposed to be. Like, even though it was so warm and lovely as a sisterhood, just like to have that power dynamic shift like so drastically is really, I don't know, it just is really warm and lovely to me. Like, and at the end of the play, without spoiling anything, something just kind of marvelous happens to Mrs. Sullen at the end of the play. And it's after Dorinda's already gotten her marvelous thing. And just, it's so easy to feel that joy in that scene for Sarah and for Mrs. Sullen, because like at this point, it's like not just, you go, big sis. It's like, you go, my best friend. And I really love, like, I think that's definitely a journey that's worth tracking in the show when you watch.
Absolutely. And there's this kind of double obstacle to them at the beginning of the play, which is not only that Dorinda is biological sisters with Mrs. Sullen's husband, and Mrs. Sullen and her husband have a really, really bad marriage, like a really toxic, unhappy partnership. So Dorinda feels this divided loyalty between the brother that she's literally related to and his wife that she's not literally related to but really cares about. But also there's this schism because Mrs. Sullen, she thinks Dorinda is kind of simple and naive. Mrs. Sullen was living a life of luxury and excitement in London for most of her life, and we think that she's about 30. So she's been on the planet a lot longer than Dorinda, and she has a lot more world experience, including romantic and sexual experience. And so there are things that she just feels like she can't talk about with Dorinda, and that there's this kind of gulf in maturity between them. And Dorinda hasn't experienced enough from her tiny town of Litchfield and her overprotective mom. She hasn't experienced enough to be able to kind of refute that. So there's this, there is this like big sister, little sister, but almost like as if there was like it's a big sister, little sister, but with 13 years between them, right? This huge age gap. And I think what you're speaking to, Siena, is the wonderful way that those two obstacles melt away, because Dorinda chooses loyalty to her sister-in-law instead of to her biological family. She's like, I'm going to stick with the person that I really care about, regardless of blood, right? And then the other obstacle melting away is she falls in love and starts to articulate her own desire in a way that makes Mrs. Sullen realize she's not just a little girl. She's a full person and a real woman, and she has lots of dimensionality and complexity, and Mrs. Sullen starts to take her seriously as Dorinda starts to take herself seriously. And it's just a really beautiful arc to track. And Siena, you and I had a session about this on Wednesday. We were talking about how much Dorinda grows and sort of blossoms, and how much the Amewell's love and admiration brings out a side of her that is more like confident and self-assured, and she sticks up for herself and articulates things that she wants in a way that she's kind of too shy to do at the beginning of the play. Marvelous. Ben, what about you?
So I just want to say in my first reading of this, I think I found the Dorinda-Mrs. Sullen relationship the most interesting, even knowing I was going to be playing Amewell, just because it's really interesting to me going in knowing, blood loyalty is a big thing, and it's really, it is very influential. So it was really interesting seeing that pull for Dorinda. So, I mean, it's really interesting. But yeah, so with Amewell and Archer, working with Ron makes it so easy to tap into this. And I mean, I told you and him in a different session that he, from the first day I met him, reminds me distinctly of like if two of my very best friends, like groomsmen in my wedding, best friends, if they had like a weird love child, like in the way he acts, in who he is, in all of it. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, this works. This is going to be really easy. But yeah, Amewell and Archer. So we're coming from London, having sort of, as you said, gambled and hoard away our money and livelihoods. I mean, we're really kind of codependent in this. So it goes beyond just like we're buddies, and it goes to we are depending on one another and this hackneyed stratagem for our livelihoods.
Yeah.
And I think it shows just how strong a bond we got, that we get through it all and, you know, remain as close as we do. And there's some, you know, bumps along the way, as, you know, you'll see, which I think just goes to show how well it's written. I mean, there's no friendship without those sorts of things. So I think that adds a level of nuance that I like, and again, enjoy doing with Ron, because it feels very natural in a way that, you know, this language can be antiquated at times, and it can feel a little unnatural in our modern tongues. And so I think it's really important and really fortunate that we're paired, in that it really helps to make it feel like I am saying these words more naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it sort of with Dorinda and Mrs. Sullen, it goes to the level of being brothers, and that really comes through in casting, which I'm happy about. I was gonna, I don't want to say too much, because everything I was about to say, I was like, and then this is what happens at the end. And this happens, and I'm like, no, don't go there.
They can see themselves.
Right. But yeah, all of that to say, I think I really enjoy both the fact that, you know, these two guys are kind of doofusy and dumb bros in a way, but at the same time, they really balance each other out, with earnestness and cleverness and all of it, and in a way that I think is written with more nuance than in some other plays, which I really appreciate and am enjoying doing.
Yeah. And you and Ron go way back, because you played Belleville and Wilmore for me, whose friendship is kind of like a sleeper relationship in Aphra Behns the Rover. You don't realize that it's going to be as essential and as nuanced and complex as it turns out to be in the course of the play. But Belleville and Wilmore really are actually our narrative foil to the beautiful sisterhood between Florinda and Helena. And as the play goes on, we realize that looking at Belleville and Wilmore as two young men navigating the world in entirely different ways and having a very different relationship to women is part of what Aphra Behn is trying to do in The Rover, right? Is to set up that juxtaposition with the sisters. And so you and Ron have been playing best friend bros for a long time.
And that, knowing that relationship going in was like, okay, thank God, like, it was gonna be easy. Like, having that sort of instant comfort with him was fortunate and has been a lot of fun.
And you're only partway through it, because the way that I structured the Stratagem project was that I wanted two male identifying actors to play the two friends that are at the center of both Beaux and Belles. So for everyone else in the company, including myself, because I'm a part of this 16-person ensemble, for everybody who is not Ben and Ron, we all have like a big role and a small role. We have like a featured show and a show where we play a sort of more innocuous character. And this is mostly done to preserve actors' mental health, and make sure that sort of, you know, if you have a really intense month playing a lead, then you can have a more relaxing month playing a more secondary or tertiary character. But also it's a chance to give everyone the opportunity to shine, right? We have amazing actors, and I want everyone to be able to take center stage at some point, because you're all brilliant. And so the only exception to that is Ben and Ron, who are playing leads in both shows, because there are two male friends who drive not only the story of Beaux Stratagem and Belle Stratagem, but like are really integral to like the heart of both plays, and the kind of beauty of both plays. And so Ben and Ron sort of started with Rover playing Belleville and Wilmore. They're now playing Amwell and Archer. But now as we move into the month of February, they're actually going to continue to play Best Friends. They're going to play Dora Court and Savile in the Beaux Stratagem, whose friendship is a really beautiful, luminous, important part of the fabric of that play. And so just briefly, I'd love to touch on who you're playing in the Beaux Stratagem and what it has been like for each of you to be working on 2 shows in rep, because this is a first for all of us. So yeah, someone take it away.
Siena?
Well, first I just want to say, I really applaud you, Ben, and I applaud you, Claire, also for putting it together. I think it was so smart to totally center these 2 male friendships, because I feel like it's so rare to have 2 male friendships that aren't based on competition. And I feel like even if, I've been thinking a lot about what would have happened if in Litchfield, Archer had been the gentleman and Amwell had been the valet, and I think it would have ended up the exact same way. I really do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, because these men just don't have competition for each other. They love each other so dearly, and I feel like it's a similar thing with Dora Court and Savile. But anyway, I just really think
Ron just brought that up yesterday, I think, actually, that exact thing. So it's really interesting you say that. Anyway.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot what the original question was.
Who are you playing in Bells?
Oh, yes. Okay. In Bells, I'm playing the delightful Miss Ogle. And Claire described her to me, and I think this is such an apt description, as kind of one of the fairy godmothers of Lady Frances. Mm-hmm. And I think once you said that, it helped me really kind of find who this woman was, because I think I originally was trying to look to create this woman who's kind of sassy and kind of Mookie, you know what I mean? Those kinds of women, because whenever you see these, because she's this aristocratic woman who comes into the life of this innocent woman to take her out on the town. And so you kind of expect, oh yeah, this is going to be totally vapid, vain woman. But I think there's something so joyous and wonderful in taking that same sincerity from Dorinda, even though she's a totally different character, mm-hmm. and putting it in her and have her really be trying to help this woman out in the world. I don't know. I think it just makes me feel warm, and I like it.
And you get to continue playing opposite Sarah, who's playing
Mrs.
Of course,
just lovely.
Yeah, so I'm playing Dora Court in Bell's Stratagem, and similarly to what you were saying as far as bringing attributes over, I feel like I'm really glad we're doing I'm really glad we're doing Beaux first, because I feel like it sets a really great groundwork for Dora Court, who I think is a little less
doe-eyed.
I don't know, I don't want to. Yeah, that's a good word. A little less doe-eyed. He is a little edgier, we think, I think a little more willing to take what he wants, mm-hmm. Regardless of its effect on other people at times. So it's been really nice to start with Amwell, because Amwell is a part I feel like I can step into. You could just rename Amwell Ben Apple and it'd be oh yeah, that makes sense. It is very much sort of how I operate. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And bringing some of that to Dora Court is nice, because you go into a process sometimes and it's how am I going to relate to this character? How am I going to make this make sense? How is it going to make sense that I am playing this character?
Right.
And being able to A, go into it with Ron in a similar role, and B, go into it bringing some of, letting some of Amwell bleed over, is makes my job a little easier in that regard. So yeah, I'll be interested to dive into that a little more and see how that progresses.
Yeah, it was really fun to start working on their friendship yesterday in rehearsal. I really enjoyed that. Yeah,
Agreed.
and also yesterday we had I should say, I can't speak for the two of you. I had the supreme joy of sort of watching the giant spectacle that is the masquerade ball of Beaux Stratagem begin to come into focus. It is the centerpiece of that play. It is a scene that is very unique in that it calls for every single ensemble member, all 16 actors, to be on stage at the same time. That's very rare, even in these old classical restos and 18th century plays. Even in Act 5, when everyone comes on stage, it's often just the characters who are like integral to the plot, right? So you only have a small group of the ensemble. But in Beaux Stratagem, there is a masquerade ball in which everyone shows up and everyone is a party guest. And we started to plot it out mechanically in rehearsal yesterday, and it was so much fun. Everyone was wearing their masks. It was quite delightful.
One of the most fun scenes I've been a part of in theater was several years ago now. Oh my God, how old am I?
We're old.
Several years ago, I was in Romeo and Juliet at the former NC Shakespeare Company, and in that I was Balthazar, and there's the masquerade scene in that, and I don't think I Balthazar is not central in that. I don't think I had lines in that, but doing the masquerade, having everyone on stage, going around, and basically it was staged well, and like nothing was pulling focus, I hope, but it's just so much fun to, I don't know, be in that kind of role where you're just a part of it, and you're a part of making this scene lively. And whether you're central or not, I mean, maybe even more so if you're not central in it, it's just a lot of fun to just kind of party in the middle of a play.
Yeah.
So it's fun bringing that to life in this platform.
Yeah. Are you going to talk about our R&J, Siena?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's something so special about a masquerade scene, whether you are like a lead character or an ensemble character, because a masquerade scene, this is literally what the theme of a masquerade literally is, but it is an opportunity to find who your true self is. Like, because how your character acts at a party, I know people are like, oh, there's party me and there's real me. But there's like some truth to how a person acts at a party. There's some truth to how a person acts in a big group and how they act behind a mask. So I've had the pleasure of being very big roles and very small roles in masquerade scenes. And I just always love them. They're really fun. I also love dressing up, and I'm very excited. Get ready. I've got a pretty interesting outfit picked out for our masquerade scene.
I cannot wait. Well, when we did R&J, when I did my R&J, oh my God, it was almost 2 years ago.
I was talking about that with my parents yesterday, and
it's
I was
crazy.
Like, old.
Isn't it crazy?
Siena played Juliet, and we did the masquerade scene set to "Shut Up and Dance," the Walk the Moon song, and we like choreographed this whole thing, and that was how she and Romeo met, and it was the sort of central conceit of that R&J was that it was a group of survivors of a high school shooting who were doing a production of R&J kind of to honor their fallen friends in the cast. And so it was an incredibly like bleak and raw and sort of psychologically fraught production. And then all of a sudden there's this like Walk the Moon song and everybody's dancing. And it was always beautiful every night because all of my actors were playing high school students first who were then playing R&J characters. So Siena was actually playing a girl named Hannah, and that was her real character. And then Hannah was the Juliet understudy who, when the actor playing Juliet was shot, stepped up to play the character. And was very shy. It was like, I'm the understudy. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And it was so joyful every single night to get to that masquerade scene, because for all of the actors playing those high school students, there was a sense of like, wow, this is probably the first time they've smiled and laughed and danced in months. There's like this, there's something really like, there was a kind of liberation, a kind of release that is not dissimilar, I think, Siena, to the liberation and release that you're describing that people have when they're behind a mask. And in Beaux Stratagem, it's really delightful because the Belle, who is strategizing, Letitia, she is actually able to like articulate like who she is and what she wants and chase after it with passion and verve and clarity and confidence at the masquerade, because she's protected by a mask, right? He doesn't know who she is. And that mask gives her maybe a false sense, but a sense of anonymity. So she's like, well, I can just flirt with him if I want to, and no one can trace it back to me. And it's really, they're really fun scenes. It was really joyous to get to start piecing that together yesterday. So last thing I want to sort of ask the two of you before we sign off for today is, what is something that has been particularly challenging about playing your role in Beaux Stratagem, or just about the Beaux Stratagem in general? And then what is something you have really enjoyed about your character or about the play?
I can jump in because my primary challenge is just the platform, to be completely honest. Like it and it's, you know, it is not one that necessarily has a solution, nor do I ask it to have one. It's just been a very it's a completely different thing, and it's been really interesting kind of working around that challenge. And I don't say, so you ask challenge, I don't say that to say like, what's been the worst thing that's made you so mad and that you hate? It's just a challenge. Yeah. It's not, it's neither good nor bad. It is different, and it's challenging just to sort of gear my, gear the way, you know, the style of acting and all of that to this platform, even down to when I'm in a scene with someone and there's other people on stage, just finding my scene partner on the screen. Right. And so it's been really interesting, sort of, now that we've done it with readings and past audio dramas. This is number 4 or 5 for me, and it's getting easier now that once I'm sort of getting used to it. But it's just been really interesting to figure out what works best. And I think this has actually been a really great process for that, and we're sort of finding more ways to experiment and play with the platform, because I mean there's some stage combat in this, and you know, we're finding ways to include physicality that maybe in our first go round would have been like, well, I guess we can't do that. And it's really interesting to start to play with that and, you know, take the challenge and rise to it as opposed to shrink from it. And so, yeah, it's been really interesting. And I mean, I know that's the easy answer, but it really has been the number one challenge for me and for most people, I think, but I don't speak for myself. So yeah, there's that. And then the biggest joy, is that what it was?
Something you've really loved.
Yeah, for me has just been, I mean, we've talked about it. Yeah, you've brought such a great group of people into the room, and you've been such a great leader of it, that it's like, it makes overcoming that or rising to that challenge so easy, because, you know, knowing that my scene partners are going to be enthusiastic and who I have chemistry with, and I've never even physically seen anyone other than Simon. It makes that a lot easier. And so we've said it before, but thank you. You really nailed it as far as that goes. And as far as a lot of other things go, but that in particular. And so it's been really great. And I feel like my bubble has grown exponentially to the West Coast and into Canada and, all over. So that's been really great.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do definitely want to echo what you just said, Ben, because I feel like one of the reasons, first of all, I love Resto, but one of the reasons I keep coming back every time you invite me, and I will keep coming back every time I'm invited, is because I miss you guys so much. Even though Claire and Robbie are literally the only people in this process who I have met in person, I feel definitely kindred spirits with everybody in this group, and so it's so nice. Every time I see the cast list and it's oh, Ben, we did Way of the World together, or blah, 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 we did this together, I'm just yay! So I definitely feel that same way.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the question? I'm so sorry.
What's been a challenge about either Dorinda or just the Beaux Stratagem in general?
Okay. Claire, you know this, but I was having a lot of trouble at first kind of cracking Dorinda. And I think part of the reason is I very relate to her, and she reminds me a lot of how I was when I was 17. And I think part of me was this girl is so gullible and so naive, and I really want to protect her. And I really had trouble getting vulnerable because I was I don't want this girl to get hurt. Or torn apart, or I just don't want her to put her heart out as much as I would have when I was 17. So that's the challenge. But part of the joy has been finding the beauty in that naivete. She's just such an innocent, wholesome, wonderful girl, and just really getting to know her. I'm I want you to be authentically yourself at all times. I don't want to take anything I could push onto you, and just kind of getting to relax into who she is has been so much fun and such a joy. And yeah, Ben, you make it so easy. And it's just been such a joy.
Yay! Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you. Dorinda's the best. I just think she's so marvelous. And I think Farquhar was a little bit ahead of his time because he, at least in terms of her characterization, because she could have been such a wilting wallflower ingenue. She could have disappeared from the story. She could have had so much less agency. And instead, she's in this play from the very beginning to the very end. And she develops and grows, and there are real stakes for her. And she just has this incredibly big heart that actually touches characters to the point that they canonically tell other characters she's the best person around, right? Like Boniface, the innkeeper, tells Amewell when he first meets him, oh yes, there's Lady Bountiful and her daughter Dorinda, who is just the best woman in the county, right? Everyone just loves Dorinda because she is so lovable, and it's I hate to say it, but you were extremely typecast, my love. There was no one else I could fathom for Dorinda. It was so completely meant for Siena Brown and her ethos. So you've both done beautiful jobs of lifting and illuminating your characters, and I think that with Beaux Stratagem, the two of you as actors and me as a director have had the joy of really finding so much overlap in the Venn diagram between you and your character in this play. There's just a whole lot of stuff in the middle of that Venn diagram for Ben and Amewell and for Siena and Dorinda, which is so fun. It makes it so delightful to do their scenes because there can be this earnestness and this wholeheartedness to it that is quite lovely. And I'm so excited to sort of continue discovering these characters with you as we record this week. And then as we sort of move towards our live Zoom performance. So anyone out there who's interested, I seriously recommend checking out our Zoom performance on Saturday, February 6th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It is going to be a just wonderful, rollicking good time. Tickets can be found at sweetteashakespeare.com/tickets. They are pay what you will. starting at $10. And yeah, it's going to be a delightful evening. There's going to be Spanish and Irish and French and physical fighting kind of on Zoom, flying bananas. Like, you just never know. And I want to say to you,
I know.
I want to say to you, Ben and Siena, thank you so much for spending time with me today, for coming to do this. It was wonderful to see your shining faces. And thank you for saying yes to this project and all the projects before, and hopefully all the projects to come, because I absolutely and utterly love collaborating with you. And I consider myself very blessed to have you in my orbit. So with that, happy Saturday, everybody. Come see our show a week from today, the Beaux Stratagem. And friends, I'll see you at rehearsal tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Bye.